Welcome back, folks, to another episode of Business from the Bass Boat on the Serious Angler Network. And guys, today we've got a great show lined up. As always, the show is brought to you by X2 Power and all of our amazing sponsors and partners that we have in this. And today's show is really going to showcase one of those. It's some of our most commented on shows on Business from the Bass Boat, and people are always, it's just something not really talked about in my eyes enough. And that's kind of how this partnership evolved with RecLending, is the lending side of the bass boat industry, how kind of all this stuff works. I don't know why it is, but it's just people don't like talking about finance and the money side of things all that much. And I have a little bit of a background in it. So Todd and I find a way to connect in some of these situations. And so more than anything, this show is really going to be an update with Todd on where things are going in the industry, those types of things. And so let's just get into it. Without further ado, let's bring Todd in. Morning, Todd.
How are you?
Doing well, man. How are you doing?
Oh, it's fall and the big brown fish are going crazy, and I'm just tickled to death with that. Other than that, is a general statement that the bass boat world is kind of on its heels right now. But I think we kind of expected it. I don't know if we expected this kind of off kilter, but yeah, it is what it is, and we just got to react and figure our way through it. So.
Yeah. No, I mean, I'm right there with you. The fall is here. It is the like, man, it's a great time of the year to be spending time outdoors and chasing fish around. And this is when fish really wolf pack up, and you can really, they put on the feed bag. So got some big tournaments coming up.
I got to spend a whole week last week chasing them brownies up north.
Oh yeah.
And get that in a 40-year class reunion. That's a completely different conversation, but gosh, it was fun. But awesome. They're just northern Michigan, Traverse City area. They're just starting to do their deal, and so the next couple of weeks are going to be just insane. And I'm looking forward to it. Yep.
Yeah. Oh man, no, this is the time of year, man. Like, to me, the spring and the fall, like those are the times when it's just too much fun to be on the water. Like, don't get me wrong, it's always fun to be on the water, but like, man, it's there's a light switch that goes on some of these places that just is unstoppable.
We spend all 12 months for a 3-week period in the spring and a 3-week period in the fall. The rest of it is just filler in between. That's my opinion. So
I like it. That's a good way to think of it. Like, and you only get so many falls and springs in your lifetime. So if you can maximize those couple week periods of spending your time when you're out there, like, man, go do it.
I got a buddy of mine he chases to hunt every year. So not fishing, hunting. So he'll start in Southern Illinois, Southern Ohio, and hunt his way across the Midwest until he ends in Michigan, because we got kind of a late season.
Right.
And I'm just so jealous of that. I mean, and last night he called me and he's telling me about some mule deer in Idaho, I think it was, and then some pronghorn, and it's cool. He enjoys it.
There's a big mule deer and a pronghorn up there. Those ones are both Colorado, but man, I love that stuff too. That's a whole nother topic. But same deal. Like, just those moments, I live for them for sure.
Well, but dude, the industry is kind of on its tail right now, if you haven't noticed.
Right. And that's kind of really where I want to get into, is like, the last time that we talked on air, it was, I kind of have been saying this, and things are starting to kind of not look good. And these types of things, there's some warning signs here, some people that might get into trouble, some people that are still going to be okay. And that's just, it is what it is. But for me, just without anything else, I did not predict, being in the lending world, that rates would stay this high this long. My interpretation was, we're high. I think it's going to cause a lot of pain, and we're going to drop those rates over time. It's never like they go up and then they come down at the same speed. But I just figured, gosh, we're near that max point and things have just held out, man. Like economy's pushing and therefore rates, as far as at least the Fed rate, that has seemed to stay higher than I had anticipated.
I think it's hard. I think it stayed higher than anyone anticipated. But I also think that to a certain degree, it's kind of manufactured. And I know that sounds canned, but if you apply all the economic formulas that industry does, this is so far out of the box that I don't think anybody knows where we're at. And I think it's going to take, and I'm not getting political, but I think it's going to take a different kind of leadership to get through this without it absolutely devastating an entire population. Because there's some folks out there right now that are really hurting, and I don't know. I just don't know. I don't know where it ends, and I'd like to say I think I got an idea, or I think I got some kind of plan. But I mean, right now we're in uncharted waters, and I mean, for instance, so I've been in the bass boat world for almost 40 years now.
Yep.
And this is the first time in my life or in my career that I've literally seen dealers just walk away, just say, I'm done.
Wow.
I can't take this anymore. It's not that they went broke. It's not that they were pushed out of business. It isn't like the manufacturers did it to them or the lenders did it to them. They just are saying, I'm done. And it's the first time in big dealers. I mean, there's lots of dealers. I mean, there's 5 or 6 that come right to mind. I'm not going to say anything,
Sure.
but I think they had a good 5 or 6 years, and those dealers were close enough to retirement that they just said, all right, I'm done. I'm not going to blindly spend $50 or $60 or $100,000 a month when I know I'm going to lose money for the next 6 or 8 or 9 months,
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know. It's real. We're in uncharted waters, in my opinion.
Yeah. Well, that's just, I mean, being in the industry that long, in the bass boat industry, you've seen a lot of change, and you've seen over the years, obviously recessions occur and there's down cycles and there's up cycles all through this. But in your opinion, you're saying, look, this is a different level in your eyes of where the industry is sitting.
Yep. There's probably lots of factors in terms of, there's lots of social media stuff. There's lots of extraneous 24-hour news cycle stuff that I think is contributing to it. But it's just a place where when my dealer would call, I would say right now, just hold on, just put your nose down, put your shoulder to the wheel and go. And I don't know if that's the answer yet, but I'll tell you what part of the answer. Can I get a soapbox for just a minute?
Go for it. Or let it rip.
So this is the environment that these dealers I'm talking to pro staff guys. I'm talking to dealer pro staff guys. I'm talking to manufacturer pro staff guys. And I know I don't have the right to preach to anybody, but this is why this environment is why dealers do the pro staff stuff. This is why they have these relationships, because now it's imperative that those pro staff folks stir things up for the dealer. And I don't mean just stir up sales. I mean service and 20-hour checks and winterizations and buying oil or buying a new fish finder, those kind of things. And yeah, am I saying it's okay to spend $20 more to go to a dealer? Do that, because that dealer needs it. And we need those dealers, not only for not me, but fishermen. We need those dealers because those dealers need to, they fix our boats. They pay some bills for us. They do all of these things. And yeah, it can be contentious at times, but we can't do it without them, and they can't do it without us, and show them that. And I can't preach it enough. Just I don't care if you go buy a damn drain plug. Just show that dealer that you're there for them, and like his post, share his post, share his used boat stuff, poke a buddy of yours who's looking to get a set of seals in a lower unit fixed or something. Just that's where we can, as fishermen, can help the industry.
Got it. Well, it's like, right. I mean, the when there's an economic downturn and ratios higher as they are, big ticket items are always cut first, right? And especially now we've got fuel prices that are steadily rocking and rolling. And so the big ticket items are always going first. And that's, if you were, hey, I'm looking to get a new boat, but it's, maybe that's a new boat, not this year. Maybe that's in a couple of years now. And it's those kinds of thoughts. But it sounds like you're saying, even if you can't go buy a new boat or a used boat or these big ticket items from these dealers, you can still give them support by going and doing the small things. And
nickels and dimes make dollars. And this is the time that nickels and dimes matter. And that's where we can help. I mean, I'm not saying you got to go spend 20 grand on a new power head, but if just whatever you got to do, try and help those guys. Okay. I got a couple of dealers that are great examples of that. Okay. So, Wheatus Marine in Kentucky.
Yeah. Big time.
Probably one of the best run dealerships in the country. And he's thriving right now. He's doing everything the way that Sean Weed is the owner over there, and he's a great friend. But it's a great example of how to do things the right way. Now, I get two of my closest friends run a dealership north of here, about 60 miles, and they're struggling. I mean, they're really struggling. It's Mount Call Marine, and I don't mean that they're struggling. I mean that they're working their damn tails off. I mean, both of them are there every morning, shrink wrapping boats and pulling pontoons and just doing everything they can do to make it work. And for me, in their fishermen, that little bit of help, that little bit, that winterization of his outboard, the oil change, the 20-hour checks, that kind of stuff, that makes it a little easier for them to make it to tomorrow and to make it to the next day. We just signed a new dealer in Kentucky. He's not a new dealer. He's been a friend of mine a long time, but Anglers Outpost in God, what is it? What little town is that?
I know.
He's got one in Shelbyville, but either way, so we were down there and visited with him a couple weeks ago, and he's another example of one of those guys in this business that he came in about the same time we started, and him and I have been friends, but he doesn't know any other way except just to work. And to be at work every day with the right attitude, with the right thing. And I think that's bolstered by all these fellas all these folks that he's helped in the fishing world. And they reach out for, I need to sell my boat, or I got a buddy who's selling a boat, or I got a buddy who's buying a boat, or they're looking for a used John boat or whatever. And he fosters that. And I think that's kind of what I'm trying to say to them. It just help them however you can. But dealers, don't forget where it came from, and remember it when it comes down to pro staff stuff and conversations about sponsors and that kind of stuff. So,
right. No, I think that's and that's. There's always going to be people who are making sales and doing things during a slow time. There's always going to be people who are going to buy boats no matter what, right? It's just you have to work that much harder to maintain and get those customers. And it's just like you're saying, with such a boom that we had in the last couple of years in the boating industry, and just bass boat sales going absolutely bonkers. Like you kind of have to realize that that's going to come to an end. And unfortunately, people who just got into the game or overbought inventory, like all those things can come crashing down pretty fast. But to hear you say some of these dealers are just walking away from business is kind of crazy to me.
Oh man. And there's been several of them. I mean, to be honest, a lot of this, they'd like to say I blame it on the banks and they blame it on the find, and to a certain, but first off, I'm going to dispel one rumor.
Yep.
We don't work for banks. Okay. My relationship and our relationship with our lenders is contentious at best. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Our customers hire us to negotiate all of the trappings that the lenders put in place. So every lender has a myriad of things that they prefer in a loan or whatever it happens to be, and it's our job to find that. Mm-hmm. As we get into these times and the rates begin to change and the programs begin to change and the banks tend to draw things in a little bit, that's when it's underlined to us that banks are in it just for themselves. They're not in it for us. They're not in it for boats. They're not in it for an industry. They're in it for themselves. Now, I understand that, okay? But the point is you have to understand that. Not everyone, some of them are willing to do things to move us forward, and some of them aren't if it isn't for their bottom line. And I don't know. You and I've kind of talked a little bit about a few of the things some ideas that I had, and I think we'll expound on that a little bit later because I think I got some ideas, and I think you and I can maybe put a bit of a promotion together to help ease some of the pain of the financing and maybe refi some stuff. But sure. I think we've got to. I think folks need to understand. Yes, it's the lender's fault, but yes, they're in it for business, and they're not my friends. I had some friends in the banking business, and they're not banks; they're friends. So,
yeah. Well, it's yeah. I mean, and in my experience in the banking world, like banks have their preferences on debt, and to me, it's like, okay, like there's all these different things that banks can lend on and have a collateral piece to, and there's all these different risk categories of, from real property and real estate to auto loans to then recreational loans, which is primarily what we're talking about here. And I mean, with what you're saying, as far as if dealers are having issues, here's a question. Do you have any idea on, you see this stuff in the news all the time of credit card debts are at all-time high, and, you hear about more foreclosure rates when it's like, in reality, foreclosure rates are fairly low from what I understand still. But as far as foreclosures on boats or anything where people aren't making payments on recreational type, has there been an uptick in your eyes with that kind of stuff?
In the RV world, it's been more than noticeable. I'm not knocking the RV industry, but I mean the RV industry. I think if what we're going through right now is the hangover from the party of the past 3 years, I think that the RV industry partied a little hard. Does that make sense? And I think
they really got after it.
I think it's just it's coming around, and they're paying the piper now. And in the bass boat, the pleasure boat world, runabouts, pontoons, center console kind of stuff, I think that is, believe it or not, it's kind of stayed steady. In the bass boat world, that's the one thing I can say about our industry is the lenders that'll listen to me and pay attention to what it is that we try and tell them about what we do and what our world is.
Right.
They're very happy with their numbers and how things are working out. And so far, now, I think the fact that the bass boat inventory was as limited as it was from 20, 21, and 22. Yep. That's gonna help us because we didn't put another 100,000 units into the market like the RV industry did, and sell them at an overly inflated price, and which is biting them in the tail now. And I think that'll help us. I've literally had two of our lenders come to us and say, "Gosh, this has been a great book of business, and it's still a great book of business. But what can we do to do more?" And you and I'll talk about that in a while.
Well, that's a good feeling to have. I mean, and that's interesting to me. I think that in the RV world, I just had a conversation with Jake Boomer with Alpha Angler Rods. My boat's up at his house right now because I've got a tournament up there next week. But he has always been a truck bed camper guy, right? And he was talking about how he's like, dude, if there's ever a time you're going to jump in, like right now, he said, I just talked a guy down $25,000 on a truck bed camper. And it's like because, and especially that's something too, moving from Colorado, which is a very camping place, to then the Northwest. Like I have never seen so many RVs in my life as I have in Idaho and Washington. Like it is absurd. And just like, I think that the big players in the RV world, the comparison there to the bass boat world is that there's so much more probably capital. It's not nearly as niche of a market as the bass boat world is.
Oh,
So
no.
when things are rolling, right? When sales are rolling, they have the ability to deploy just boom, like we'll get the inventory. We'll figure it out how to get stuff to sell. And it's just not that way in the bass world.
No, and I think it might help us. I really do. But Jody and I were coming home from up north this week on Sunday, and we had to pay. I mean, it was a 4-hour drive, and up north, I mean, we were in Traverse City area, and the entire drive home, I bet we passed 4,000 RVs. I mean, folks come, and so I don't think that the industry itself is hurting. I think the new sales or the sales might be hurting, but folks are still using them, and they're still recreating, and lots of those still had boats in the back. But I don't know. So I don't know. It's really a freaky time, and it's really a strange time, and we'll be able to say 10 years from now that, hey, we made it through 2023, or we didn't.
Right. Right. Well, let's hope not the latter there.
We'll be over it.
Yeah. And I mean, this is what you kind of prepare for during the good times, right? And as far as it is interesting that you say, and probably it's that case, right? Like with inflation, we saw everything pricing go up, especially we're talking on vehicles, on RVs, on bass boats too. It's like, overnight it seemed like to me, like, gosh, these prices jumped $20,000, $30,000 in some situations. Now, granted, we're putting more technology on these boats than we ever have before. A lot of graphs, a lot of poles, everything else. So there's something to be said for that, I think, when people look at this stuff. But it's, do you feel like at this point at all have prices come down? Or, I mean, obviously the rule with prices is, they rise pretty dang fast, and they're never going to drop at the same consistency as they're at. They seem to like level out. It's like it gets to 80, it stays at like 80. Maybe it drops a little, but like, what's your take on that?
Well, with the inventory as low as it was for the past 3 or 4 years, the manufacturers themselves didn't, in my opinion, at least from what I saw, they didn't react price wise to the market. The dealers did. So now all of a sudden the dealers got a boat that everybody in the world wants to buy, and artificially the price goes up. And I'm not blaming the dealers for that, because if you've only got one to sell, or you only have 2 to sell, or 3 to sell, you got to make a lick on it, or you're going backwards.
Right, supply and demand.
Like you have the keys. And I think the manufacturers began to realize that they could take a piece of that by raising their price, and therefore make a little bit more profit. I don't think they reacted fast enough to bringing it back, and they never do. But I do believe that'll happen. I think we're going to lose some boat companies. I think that
on companies.
Yep. I think there'll be some consolidation of companies. So-and-so will buy so-and-so who buys so-and-so. And I think that in and of itself will help correct the market. So in other words, Bass Boat Company ABC decides that they're not going to build a bass boat anymore, and they've got 150 or 200 units out in the field. Now all of a sudden, and it's already starting to happen, they're making phone calls because they've got 300 or 400 boats in stock or however many.
Yeah.
The calls to the dealers that are strong saying, what would you think about a 25% discount on dealer cost? And that's where it'll begin to correct itself. So now all of a sudden there's 400 boats in the new pipeline anyway that are extremely more affordable than they were 3 years ago. I can't get that boat again, but still it fills a void. Okay. Some guy's going to buy a 20-foot boat for 50 grand rather than 90. And
right.
I think that's coming. The used boats have begun to correct. I mean, the used boats are, in my opinion, are about where they should be now. Okay. They're not, nobody's taking a bath on them. But I think it's kind of come down into it's found reality. But I don't know. I think by February we'll have a really good look at what 2024 is going to look like. Only because the next 3 or 4 months are going to mean it's going to be make it or break it for lots of manufacturers and lots of dealers. And we're going to do all we can do to help them. We'll try anyway.
Yeah. Well, that's the dealership world to me is just insane from the aspect of the financing, right? Like before the last couple of years of looking at this industry pretty hard, I didn't realize that an entire dealer lot is financed. And when you take rates from all-time lows and bump them very quick, your interest, when your interest is 8, 9, 10, 11, whatever it is on a dealer lot on a couple $1 million of product, like those numbers change quick. And your monthly cost of holding that inventory can just skyrocket. It's incredible to me. That's more affected than real estate than anything else because it's, so often that payment.
I don't think what most consumers don't understand is that the inventory thing was kind of its own perfect storm. So it used to be that when you went to a dealer meeting in June or July and you ordered, next year's inventory, those manufacturers would pay that interest until you came in season. So they'd pay it. You didn't have to start paying interest on it till April, May, June, July.
Oh, that's right. Okay. Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So it gave the dealer a chance to sell the dated inventory and still have new product to show and still have things to do. Well, the manufacturer started, because they didn't have big inventories or big field or factory inventory.
Yep.
They began to wheedle that down. So now they weren't doing it for 8 months or 12 months. They did it for 6 months, or they did it for 4 months, or they did it for whatever, because the dealers were turning them over pretty quickly. Well, they haven't reacted to that yet to bring that back in. Okay.
Oh, really? Okay.
So July, August, September, in my opinion, were probably the most costly for a dealership, because not only are they paying the 1% interest on everything that I use 1% a month. Okay. So if you've got $2 million, that's $20,000 worth of interest you have to pay.
Mm-hmm.
But they also instituted back, I think it was 20 or 19 or 20, something like that. They instituted the curtailments. So a curtailment is the dealer's chance to buy equity in that unit. So it's not a chance because it's required, but so now he's got to pay 1% a month, and then it's either 8, 10, 12, or 15% of the balance owed on that boat. Okay. So that they get some equity. Now, if you do that, if it's okay, so it's 10% on $2 million, that's a real number, and that's due monthly. Now, yes, he's still gaining some ownership in that boat, but his cash flow now is so diminished that he's just got to sell it to not go backwards. And the industry, they're starting to correct. They're starting to, some manufacturers are coming in saying, we'll pay interest for the next 10 months, or the stuff you got in stock, we'll stop the interest on, or we'll pay for it. So, I mean, that stuff's starting to get there, but it's going to take, like I said, I don't think we'll know the true effects until probably sometime in February.
Gotcha. Well, it's so when you're talking that curtailment that's built in, is that like when I understand what you're saying as far as they're gaining equity because they're paying down some of that boat. Are they like, so they're able to make like it's almost like a principal reduction payment.
Exactly. Okay. So if they owed 50 grand on it when they bought it, with the first curtailment being $5,000, now they owe 45.
I see. And they're making that. So then they have the equity, but at the same time, unless that product sells, you're putting money into it.
And at a time of the year, so the July, August, September is when things begin to tail off. And that's the biggest expense for the dealers is July, August, September, October, November, because I mean, they've got, not only they have the interest stuff, they've got all of the boat shows to do. They got to lay out all their marketing and all their advertising for the next year. They've got to put the deposits down for all the boat shows. So I mean, it's just it's a really expensive time for a dealer.
Right.
And what I meant by perfect storm was nobody anticipated fast enough. And I think they're starting to get it. Some of the manufacturers are coming around, but then it's just, who knows what the manufacturers financially will be like after that, but we'll see. I mean,
yeah, well, if that's, I mean, if it makes sense to me that you're saying this is the most expensive time with all those factors, and it's your slowest time from when you had the spring, and now you're paying more and more interest on all this over the summer, and now we're into the fall. Like, this is an important next couple of months, and like you're saying, there'll be some more shakeup than already what has occurred because of that, all of that happening at this time. And then, what next spring will look like. It's like trying to make it through the winter, right? Like it'll be interesting next couple of months. It's interesting. Like that's the timeline of things. I didn't realize that was that cyclical or that.
Can I make a tiny selfless
do it
pitch? So part of what dealers will do when things begin to get like this is, they're looking to cut things, they're looking to change things, they're looking to trim up the expenses, all those little things. And one of the things that they tend to use first is personnel. And whether I agree with that or not, it's just a reality. So salespeople, finance people, all those people begin to look at them as, I'm paying a finance guy $150,000 a year to sit here, and we're not selling anything in July, August, September, October, November. But you're still paying him. You're still paying his insurance. You're still paying all those things. Right. The last time this happened, it was the personnel in the marine industry suffered. Okay, I want to tell those dealers now, if that's what they're doing, first off, you're going to have to explain it to your folks that this isn't long term, it's short term. And if they need us to help them fill a void, I mean, we got 20 plus folks here that'll function as your finance arm for the time being. If you need to, we'll fill a gap. I'm not telling you that we got to be in business for the next 15 years, but if we can help you get through that part and then stand your finance office up again, or your title office up again, or whatever it happens to be, I'd be happy to do that. And that's a thankless pitch on my part.
Yeah. Well, no, I mean, it's real, right? It's like, I think the majority of people view what rec lending is like, okay, this opportunity for folks to finance their boats and these types of things. And the dealer side of that is really where the pinch is, right? Like the people are going to make that decision of, okay, maybe I don't need another boat this year, and they can survive and make it through. But if people aren't buying boats, dealers have a really, really big problem. And to offer that lifeline, and that's some of the ability, creative. I think that's a good term for it, Todd, is I've always enjoyed these conversations because you seem to get creative when it comes to dealing with some of these banks and saying, here's what we can do to provide help. It's coming from a helping place. And that stuff, I think it goes a long way. And that's a good, I think that's a great plug to at least talk about, to say, hey, look, there's going to be some harm here. And if we can step in and help you, let us know.
Well, so that brings me to the conversation that we've kind of chit chatted about a bit. So lenders, our lenders anyway, they try to plan each year what the book is going to look like, or what their book of business, or what book we're going to bring to them, and they try to forecast with that. Okay.
Right now, you're saying that's this.
Yep, that's primarily what we're in the throes of right now. Okay.
Okay.
And it's a unique time for us, because it's probably the only time that I get to negotiate with a lender on behalf of our customers and our company, because, well, they're bankers and they're asking for something, and they're looking for us to commit to a certain thing. So it's kind of a unique time. Okay. So in my mind, I've had a couple of conversations with a couple of our lenders in regards to refinancing. I know it's too early to talk about refinancing because the rates are still crazy, but the conversation is beginning with the lenders now. Okay. Because they know it's coming. They know that's what it's going to be.
Start coming down in 2024 at some point.
And they've asked, and we talk about it every day. And the conversation is, what do you think the refinance market's going to look like, and what are you going to be able to what are you going to be able to place with us? What's our book going to look like? How much money are we going to find? These kind of things. What's the average one? This and that. So I was thinking, and you and I kind of talked about it a little bit.
Yeah,
I want to come up with a way to pre-register folks for refis. Okay. So now, I guess registered probably is not the right word, but what I'd like to be able to do is aside from all the customers that we've already done, that we've already promised that we're going to do something with, as far as helping them refinance things and bring their loan back into reality. Mm-hmm. I'd like to be able to do that. I'd like to be able to do it to the world. I'd like to be able to offer it to them. Now, what value is it in there for a customer to do it now? Probably not a lot. I mean, if we can try and incentivize it somehow, and we can put our heads together on how we can do that. But the value in it for that customer is that in January or February, when I go to that lender and say, I've got $40 million worth of refis registered now. Now, all of a sudden, my ability to negotiate when that refi happens, the rates, the terms, the specials, all those things, it goes up extraordinarily. And I think everyone benefits from it. Even the folks that refinance outside, because we kind of push the market and we kind of push the terms of the refi. And what I think I'd like to do is some sort of promotion that would encourage the folks to register for it. Not a case where we're not going to pull credit. We're not going to do all that stuff. We're just going to stage all these refis so that, one, I can use them as leverage against the lenders, but two, I know what personnel, I know what manpower I got to have. I know what hours I got to have. I know what it's going to look like when it finally starts to come down. And I don't know. That said, I think I'm interested in hearing what you have to say about it.
Yeah. Well, no, I mean, like you said, we've kind of talked about this issue, right? Of rates are very high. A lot of boats have been purchased over the last couple years at rates that are traditionally higher than where they have been in the last 10 to 20 years, right? Like that is just the way it is. And so how do you position to help folks out when rates come down and be ready to do that? And by having that stuff lined up, to me, as the consumer, you're sitting there basically on by signing up in some way, right? Of having some kind of information on file for RecLending, what you're able to do is you're essentially on a ticker system of basically these folks have my back for when rates get lower than where I'm at now. and it makes sense to do a refinance, I have the ability to not worry about that and be searching and paying attention to rates and things. It's like that to me, when I was in farm and ranch lending, the best calls that I could make during that low rate time frame in 2020, right? 2021, like that time frame, it was incredible because same deal. There was basically a ticker system with our own customer base. What I like here is what the thought process of we're doing this with anybody that wants to take advantage of something like this.
Yep.
But with our own customer base, essentially, it was like, hey, when a rate would get below 1% of where the rate is at, in our mind, it makes sense to move and refinance that, charge a very minimal paperwork fee to just roll things in. But what that did was it made for some of my favorite calls ever. You call somebody up and you say, hey, with where rates are, I think right now it makes sense to refinance. And you know how many old farmers would say, I've never got a call from a lender that has said, hey, do you want to lower your rate with us that we already have at this rate?
Yep.
You know what I mean? And they were just, they were tickled. And you know, that to me, that's kind of the thought process here, but getting ahead of it even in advance, because you're doing it months before we see any sort of drop in rates, right? Like at this point, you know, no one is thinking about refinancing. They're sitting there going, I'm glad I got in when I did. Like rates are high, but at some point that's going to flip. It's cyclical.
I think in regards to the lenders in the adversarial relationship that we tend to have with them. This scenario is the only scenario where a consumer and us as the representatives of the consumer, it's the only time that we get to flex our muscle. It's the only time that I think it's a unique opportunity where we can kind of push an industry and they only listen to money. They're bankers. I mean, they only listen to money. And I think if we're able to go to them and say, we got 25 or 30 or $50 million of refinances in our back pocket, all of a sudden somebody's listening. And now they can afford to give an extra quarter point or an extra half a point because of the bulk.
Right. The volume there.
In 90% of our folks are really strong buyers in terms of what their individual portfolios look like.
Right.
And the other ones are growing. So we've got all these very, very stationary folks. Okay. The good careers, own their homes, those kind of things.
Quality borrowers.
And then we have this young group that is growing, and that's the group the banks want. They want that guy that's going to do a credit card, he's going to do a car, he's going to do a mortgage, and he's going to do all of these things. But right. that young person is growing what their credit profile looks like, and by the time we get to where we refinance, we can monetize that on their behalf. And I think we can turn it into something that really works. I really do. I mean,
yeah. Well, it's just again, on the creative side of things, I think something like this is just, I'm excited to kind of have some more conversations around this and come up with something to a way to get folks interested in something like this. And because I do think at the end of the day, you're doing nothing but helping folks in that situation, and it's completely open and honest about it. It's like, hey, if we get more volume, we have leverage. When you have volume, you have leverage to talk to the banks, and that's essentially it.
Would it be? And you got to be honest with me, okay? Would it be corny for me to do like giveaways? I mean, say I put 10 grand in a pot and say whatever, but I mean, and break it down.
I don't think so. I think that from a,
you got to tell my daughter that she's gonna cringe when I
Yeah, well, I think it's a great way for, right? I mean, you see it, right? You see giveaways with bass boats. You see Black Rifle Coffee, right? I think they're giving away a bass cat. Like those types of things. I think that draws consumers in, and that's incentivizing. But I think people are like, hey, this is something I'm to me, it's incentivizing, but it's not just this gimmick of an incentivize of like, hey, we want your information. It's like we're trying to help you here and to give away some
Right.
additional things and make it fun and make it exciting. And like, yeah, I don't think that's a bad plan at all.
We don't sell any information. We don't allow it to anyone else, anyone outside of our thing. And they do that for a reason. I mean, for crying out loud, this is a very intimate industry. And I just don't want to be the guy that gets his ass chewed because somebody got a cranky call from somebody trying to sell him an annuity. And that's not what we do.
Right.
And so
Totally.
they need to know that. And I think if you don't mind, over the next couple of weeks or the next week, let's try and pin it down. And if the folks at Serious Fisherman or
Serious Angler.
Serious Angler want to partner with us on some of it, I'd be tickled to death. I think seriously, you probably codify our market. I mean, you are who we are, and your market is ours. And I don't know.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I think there's a lot of
helping me with it. I'd like to help.
Yeah. No, well, Todd, I think that there's a lot of that, and I think it'll be good these next couple of weeks. I think I just like the idea of the timeline. Like you said, we've had some conversations on figuring something out, and I think that'll be good, man. I do.
I do have one more bit of news and announcement I'd like to do if I could.
Do it.
So for the past year, I may have mentioned that I have a young man that works for me that does our insurance stuff. So meaning that if somebody's needs a boat policy to fund a contract or makes liaison with their insurance agency, it gets their insurance information to fund the contract and all those things. But so we're moving the business sometime after the first of the year. And I promised, Jake is his name. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Jake, insurance guy, Jake. Yes, he wears khakis a lot. but Jake, I promised him if I ever had the opportunity to open up a full line insurance agency for him, that I'd do that for him. And just like, he's a great kid. I mean, and unlike me, he has a passion for insurance. And so for the past year, I've been working on standing up an insurance agency. Mm-hmm. And it looks like sometime around the first of the year, we'll do a big announcement about what it's going to be, who it's going to be, and what it's going to look like. But I'm going to do it the way we do everything, and we'll pour everything into it. We'll make sure that everything is the way that it should be when we launch it. And I don't know, I'm kind of excited about it. I'm kind of excited to see what the kid does with it. I really am. I mean, he's a great kid, and through this process, I mean, he's shouldered it. I mean, he's let me say one thing about it. It's been an absolute nightmare.
Yeah, insurance is something.
Oh my God. The licensing, the regulations, the just the business part of it. And I mean, I've been in business a long time, but I don't understand how to run an insurance agency. I mean, how do you staff it? How do you pay them? How do you know, all of those things? So it's been a lot of work, but we're getting down to the brass tacks of it now. And I think by the first of the year, we're going to be able to stand up. I think we're going to call it RecLending Insurance Services or something like that.
Okay.
And I think we're going to try and do it all. I think we're going to try to do boats. We're trying to do cars, RVs, all the stuff. And we're going to try and do it nationwide. And I think that'll be about the first time I think this has been tried from an agency standpoint. But so far, so good. I think it'll work.
Well, that's awesome. Now that's good to hear, and can't wait to hear more about that in the future of getting things rolling. But it's good to hear that trying to get it rolling by the first of the year next year. And that's just another thing that everyone needs, and in that world, especially to me, it's relationships and trust with folks, because there's a lot of competition. And it's
Oh,
like,
yeah.
if you can connect with anglers, with like-minded people, and that's like you said, you're like, I don't have a passion for it, but I have a passion for bass fishing and anglers and that connection. And so it seems like a good situation there, and can't wait to hear about
One
it
of,
all, Jake.
one of the things that predicated the conversation with this thing, in kind of a funny story,
Mhm.
but you understand what credit life insurance is?
No,
So
it's that.
when someone takes out a loan on whatever it is, they can buy a credit life policy that if that something happened to them, it would pay the loan off for whoever it
Oh,
was
really?
that was on the
Okay.
contract. Okay.
Okay.
I mean, it's been around a long time. It's incredibly expensive. It's not, in my opinion, it's not the best product for a lot of folks.
Okay.
But we live in blue collar union world where everyone wants it, and or they do. I mean,
Mhm.
they bought it when they bought their first car, and they've had it for every car and every mortgage after that, or mortgage insurance, or whatever it happens to be.
Because they
So,
want, in their mind, it's like, heaven forbid something happens to me. I don't want this debt to carry on to whoever
exactly,
is supposed to get this.
exactly.
Okay.
And so we very selectively included it and sold it in the policies we had because it was so expensive.
Mhm.
And now all the lenders, California's started, they don't like it. So once California starts something, then the rest of the world just kind of finds its way there. But now the lenders are getting away from that part of it.
Mhm.
Well, even though I'm not insurance doesn't excite me, I understand it. Okay.
Right.
So back a long time ago, when I bought my first boat, I bought $150,000 term policy. Okay.
Okay.
That's my boat. Okay. So when I bought it, it was cheap. I mean, it cost me a couple $100 a year, but it doesn't follow the loan. It follows me. So regardless of what boat I have, I've still covered that boat. And
Interesting.
and I started thinking, man, why aren't we doing that for all those folks? Why don't they just get a policy and keep the policy, get it when they're cheap, and then they don't have to worry about, because a credit life policy on a $100,000 loan that's 20-year term is a $6,000 or $8,000 bill, and it diminishes as the loan goes down, and when you pay it off. When you pay it off because of the way they amortize it, you're just only going to get a fraction of that back. And so in my mind, I was thinking, God, there's got to be a way to tie all this in. So I started asking questions, and then we ended up with an insurance agency.
There you go. Holy cow. Let's add more to your plate, Todd. Why don't you?
Yep. Don't tell my wife that, please.
I won't. Well, we normally end the show with, biggest, smallmouth, largemouth, those types of things. But I want to ask you. So this fall, sounds like you spent a lot of time
Yep.
Traverse City on some of these
Oh, I
big.
got 3 more weeks.
Yeah,
Oh.
and that time frame on your boat or with your group of guys fishing. What I want to do is ask, in your opinion, what's going to be the biggest fish weighed? What's it going to be? And then we'll check back in, maybe this spring or even later on this year, and hear where you feel like see what was right. And I'm going to write it down. What do you think
Well,
the biggest?
I think in the brownfish category, we're already seeing sevens. We've seen 2 sevens already. So I don't think it surprised me if we saw a heavy 7 or an 8. It's just lining up to be that. Okay. In the largemouth category, one of the lakes that we're going to in 2 weeks, it's got probably some of the biggest. Both of the lakes do some of the biggest largemouth I've seen. I bet we'll see some 7s, maybe something crowding 8 in the greenfish category, but I don't know. We'll see. I know we'll see lots of 5s and 6s, but somebody will get a buddy of mine just caught a 7.4 in a derby last weekend. I mean, it looked like a mule.
I love those northern strain big ones too, because they kind of smaller
they're
mouth and they're just
wide and short.
balls,
And,
man.
yep,
That's exactly right.
Oh,
Okay, so let's put some actual pounds and ounces. Smallmouth and largemouth.
Smallmouth 7.6, smallmouth 7.6, largemouth 7.6.
7.6. All right, 7.6s, man. I like it.
The minute I get it, I'm gonna send you a picture.
Oh boy, I'm ready for it. And we'll put it on here. That's great.
Okay.
Awesome. All right, Todd. Well, dude, thanks for giving us an update on everything in the industry. Your thoughts, where you see kind of pain points, and we'll get a solution, something put together.
If anyone just has questions about what's going on out there and what they're thinking about doing, we'd be happy to help them. I mean, we answered call after call after call, just trying to guide folks through what makes sense to them in their situation and what makes sense to what they're trying to do. And I'd be happy to help. I mean, any of my folks would. So Adam, I appreciate the service that you do to our industry. I really do.
I appreciate that, man. That means a lot. And just trying to get information out to folks. That's the goal, right? And educate people. So awesome. All right, Todd. Well, man, have a great rest of your day here. I'm ready to hear about your big smallmouth. I'll let you know about mine here next week. I'll be up in Washington State on some sections of the Columbia, which has been, oh man, there's some awesome fishing.
I bet.
So
super excited about that. Good luck.
All right, man. Sounds good.
Thank you.
Have a good one. We'll see you.